Hello again. So, just I have to apologize for that. Hopefully my sound is coming through now. Once again, we're doing this. Everybody has to do something for the first time. And so I've started this Facebook Live Techno. Every Saturday we're going to do this. And I restarted it as I got somebody told me that there was no sound. So hopefully that had been fixed now. So anyway, we'll reinvigorate this thing here. So I think where I want to start with this is a little bit of a background on myself. So I've done I have been doing support work for over 2 years now. And I've seen a lot of customers have issues that could have been solved early on, and it would have cost them a lot less money, a lot less frustration. And that's one of the reasons I started ITHive.org. I wanted to do tech support a little bit differently and provide my customers with an opportunity to learn what they can do with their technology so that they're not totally dependent on someone like me all the time, right? Because if a customer can resolve their problem on their own, right, it's less frustrating for them, and it's also more cost effective, right? And I'm not concerned that my customers would do something that would hurt their computer ever, because the type of support I give them is an ongoing type of relationship. So if they do get into trouble, I'll likely know what happened, and but hopefully before they can give me a quick call or send me an email and just ask me a quick question, just to make sure. But it's all about the relationship, right? And the reason I went with that model is that traditionally, in all the other environments I worked in, is that this is the type of scenario, and it still happens today. Customer has a problem on their computer, but the computer still works. So what they do is the computer still works. They realize somewhere subconsciously that there is a problem, but it's working, so I shouldn't have to worry about it. Everything will be fine. But what always happens behind the scenes is that problem manifests itself to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually causes their technology not to work anymore, or they end up with a security breach, or who knows, any number of things go wrong. And then at that point, when they have the disaster, then they try and find a tech, right? It's maybe somebody they've never met before, or maybe there's somebody they've been before or whatnot, right? So, the tech shows at their business or their house to fix the issue at hand, and what happens is they have no idea what things happened 6 months ago to cause the disaster that is in front of them. They can make good educated guesses based on their experience and be interviewing the client a little bit. But at the end of the day, regardless of tech experience, you're very often trying to find a needle in the haystack to resolve a problem. Or, you can take a more aggressive stance and just, back up the customer's computer and, wipe it and rebuild it, right? Which also takes time, right? So there's all efficiencies there, right? And at the end of the day, the customer has to pay for that. And so they're frustrated that they have a disaster and nothing works. Then they're frustrated that the coming in to help them might not necessarily have immediate answers right away, right? Which is to some extent a misconceived idea. And then they got to pay a big bill, right? So frustration, right? So I embarked out on doing things a little bit differently. So at its core, I guess you could call ITHive.org a managed services company. And I'll explain managed services by definition there. And what that is you pay for some software or some hardware, and it comes with services, right, ordered in there. So you get a certain amount of support for your product if anything goes wrong. Okay. Now, with just that in place, with just managed services, that also has an issue. So, and here's the issue, and it's a human one, because companies and individuals and employees and people doing work that I need to work, at the end of the day, we need to make money and revenue to, buy food, support our families, all that stuff, right? We're just like you guys. And unfortunately, some could be under the managed services model a bit too bent on making profits, right? And that notion ends up causing corners to be cut, right? And that's not good, right? Or you miss out on other opportunities. So, let's say you're in this plan where you're paying a fixed amount of money, and anything that goes wrong, the tech, comes to the rescue and solves everything, and they have a little bit of more information to go by, so it's easy to do. But the gut feeling or the notion behind that call, right, is going to be, I got to fix the problem, and then disengage with the client as quickly as possible. Because my boss or myself or whatever need to maximize those profits, right? So you won't take that extra bit of time to help the customer, right? Or to give them some education, or to explore why the problem happened in the first place, right? These are all opportunities that end up getting missed, right? So in the model that I've adopted for ITHive.org is what we do is managed services, but I also, and I give a bit of support time with that, but I also have hourly services as well. And what that allows me to do is to come to a customized solution with my clients, right? Because everybody's needs are different. Your business needs are different. Your residential needs are different. Your level of education or comfort with technology might be different. So everybody needs a different level of support, right? So because I have the managed services, that gives me the ongoing relationship to support the client and to know what's happening in their environment, so I can do that efficiently. But then with the hourly services on top of that, that allows me to provide the customer with the level of support that they need from a human perspective. What do you need so that you become comfortable with your technology, so that you not feel intimidated by it, so that you can be a little bit more, what's the proper word? A little bit more independent or self-sufficient, or yeah, you get the idea, right? And I've had other people in my field say, well, you shouldn't be educating customers, and I just laugh at, because what, one of the biggest problems with technology is the level of education, right? I've seen lots of things, and I think a good example, okay, is there's still people out there that when they get that call from the fellow in India who says he's from Microsoft, and he's saying, oh, you have a virus on your computer, you know what? Microsoft's never going to call anybody and tell them that, and Microsoft will not know if you have a virus on your computer. And yes, that individual calling you to say that you have a virus on your computer managed to put the virus on your computer in the first place, there's no way that they would know. So really, all this is just a means of trying to trick you into getting services that you don't need, or actually even worse than that, paying for getting a virus, right? And some of these folks are really, really intimidating, and they get very aggressive. I take this personally, because like all of you, I have parents, and they get calls all the time from people trying to do this. Now, obviously, they know better, and they don't follow through with anything there. But the thing is that there's still a lot of people that get tricked by that. That's why they're doing it, right? And I think of recent examples. I had a customer not too long ago that she got that call, from Microsoft, right, saying that you have a virus on your computer, and of course it was a scam, right? They had a nice looking website and all that stuff, and so what happened is that they gave the individual instructions, download this, install that, and then they got remote access to their computer, and then they pretended to fix the virus issue. They installed some antivirus software that they didn't need, and then they did some other things, and they made it look like we're doing a lot of work here and protecting us. But so they did all that, and in that case, right, the client was $300 or roughly something like that. And after that occurred, she, maybe that was a scam, right? But because people don't feel comfortable with technology, and their level, especially if you're a senior citizen, right, you feel intimidated, right? So when somebody calls, right, oh, we better believe this, right? Oh, there's an issue. Oh, technology's that we can just, there must be a virus on my computer, so they get it fixed. But so in that case, right, the lady realized that maybe she had been duped, right? And so she called me, and I was looking after their, somebody that they knew's computer, and I came in and explained to her that, you were taken for a ride. You didn't have any of these problems in the first, and so we helped. I undid everything they did, looked for any back doors that they might have had to get access to the system and all that stuff, and installed my services on her computer, so she can have actually the real support, right? Not just the scammer, right? And good news there. I did my part, reported these guys to our federal government, and there's all websites where you can report people doing illegal activity and scamming customers, right? So I did that as well on my side. For what help it makes, and I encourage them to call her credit card company and get money back, which was also a challenge. But what I told her to say is that, you spent this money under false pretenses, right? Because there's no way the people in the first place would have known you had a virus, right? So clearly, activity. And that approach with the credit card company and got a full, oh, good. Customer wins, bad guy loses. But there's the sad truth and the reality to this, though. Even though we reported these guys and reported everything that they're doing, and that they're ripping off customers and whatnot. In the world of technology today, all they have to do is shut down their website, shut down the phone number, and reinvent new ones, which is really easy to do. So they come back as another name, another organization, and continue to rob more people, which is really sad. Really, really sad. Security is one of those things in today's world that must be taken very, very seriously, right? And, the biggest message I'd say to people is that, if you have somebody calling you or you see a message on your computer that looks funny, it's not anything that looks normal, think twice before you act on it, right? It's good to be just a little bit paranoid here, right? And that would be a very good strategy. The thing with that is that, I don't want you to be too over paranoid, right? And I think where this comes in mind with the services that we're in here is that if you have a relationship with ITHive.org, right? Yes, be careful, be protective of your computer, but you don't really have to be paranoid because you have a place to go, right? You have somebody you can call, you have somebody you can email, right? All our services come with remote support, so it's very easy for us to, on an agreed appointment schedule, connect to your computer and work with you, and you can show us, hey, wasn't sure about this, what should I do? And then you get some advice, and then you're not in that situation, right? Back to the scammers, I had another lady who actually was a customer of mine, a new customer, and she, got a call from the 1-800 guys, from India, and saying they're from Microsoft, and you got to, the same old story. You got a virus on your computer and whatnot, right? Now, because she was a customer of mine, she already knew that, okay, this is, she almost fell for a new customer of mine, but she had the good sense to say, let me call you back because I don't have time right now, right? And in that case, they, after some very aggressive talk on the scam, she held her gun and ended up hanging up, and got shortly after that from her, and very, very flabbergasted that this had happened. And I explained to her what was happening in behind the scenes, and that there's no way that anybody's going to know if you have this on your computer, except for me, because you're a customer of mine, right? And I'm actually looking after your technology, and all services that I deploy to my customers report whether they're working or not. So if it's offsite backup or security software or just health monitoring of your system, all that stuff comes back to me, and I can see anybody who's having an issue, right? And I either fix it behind the scenes or ask my customers to set up an appointment so that we can address the issue before it becomes, as I started in this conversation, before it becomes that, festering issue that takes everything out 6 months down the road, right? Very often, most of my calls, right, customers can book my time right from the website, in the contact of ITHive.org, and when they do that, they book for an hour, right? But we're fixing the problem, in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? Unless it's something more involved, right? We're working on projects or something like that. But that's most of the time the experience. And I really like that, right? Because we do this remotely. It's convenient for me as the tech, so I can be reasonable with pricing, and it's also convenient for the customer because I'm not in their house or at their business being in the way or anything like that. I can work one-on-one with whoever I need to work with. I can sit back and say, okay, and very often I start all my calls like this. First, I call the customer at the arranged time, and then I say, okay, I'm going to connect to your computer. Is that okay? And they say, yes, that's fine. Connect to the computer. And then I say, okay, I understand you have this problem. Can you show me the problem you're having? And very patiently, I just sit and watch the customer demonstrate the issue that they're having, right? And that's very important because a personal computer is such that you can do things, 500 different ways, right? And not everybody does things the same way. That's just the nature of a personal computer, and it allows you to do that. So it's important for me to understand how that human being is interacting with the computer. And by that understanding, I can help support them better, right? Because it might just be an education issue. It might not be a technology issue. It could be a human being issue, right? And so understanding all of that, then I can actually provide real support so that at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do with all my customers is give them an environment that they're learning in, and they're becoming more independent, right? And more less reliant on me and more reliant on themselves, and doing the right things and making sure that things are working on a computer. I'm not, converting everybody into being techs, right? But I am increasing the level of education for customers, right? So that they can become less frustrated, right? And I actually track, for all my customers, I track the amount of time that I spend supporting them. And a goal behind the scenes for me is that support time on average should start to drop off over time. And if there's some exceptions, of course, sometimes, because if you do a big project for a company, the time is going to go up a little bit. But if everything is normal and we're not implementing new stuff, right, over time, the amount of time that they require from me should level out and be consent, or it should drop down, right? And I encourage customers to, I give them the information so they understand how much time they're using over the last 12 months on average, right? And I encourage them all to set aside a budget. So based on, what you've normally used every month, just purchase that in advance because it's cheaper. And then let that build in your account, right? Any pre-purchase time or time that I'm giving customers never expires, right? I don't play that game where, you pre-purchase time, but, it expires at the end of the month and all that kind of nonsense. No, you buy time, or if I do time, use it until you've used it, right? And strongly about that. So that's the type of support that they would get. Where else do we want to know? So we talked about security. We talked about services, ITHive.org. I think I'm probably going to wrap this up in 6 minutes or so. And, we'll have to see about post-this, for the first tech show, right? I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of an audience, but that's fine. I can test it out this way, make sure it's good, and hopefully we can publish this video on YouTube or wherever it happens to be. I have to figure that out still. But what else do we want to talk about? So, okay, here's something I can spend 5 minutes on. One of the services I offer, and I leave this as an optional service, right? But for customers that don't take it up, I remind them on a regular basis, and that's bad. Okay, your biggest defense next to having security software is backing up important things. And what I do with all customers, and I encourage everybody, whether you're a small business owner or a residential client or a student, right? Take a laptop or a computer, and I don't care what manufacturer it's from, it doesn't matter, and pretend it's gone, like it just disappeared now, right? And I do myself as well. And then think about what you're missing, okay? And there isn't even, in many cases, an ability to put dollar value on this. Let's take an example, and I've had a customer that had this situation long ago. They had all their videos and pictures from their kids growing up, and when their kids were born and stuff like that, on a computer, on a hard drive, and it had failed. And so they couldn't get access to that stuff anymore. How do you value that, right? It's really tough because there is really no value. It's just lost, right? It's emotional value, I guess, right? And so the backup service I provide, right, what I do typically, and it's really not that expensive if you think about it, I'll sit with the customer and explore with them that very question. Okay, your computer's gone. What are you missing, right? And based on what they're saying, that's the stuff we back up. I explain to them how it works. I explain to them what to watch out for. If they some new information that they want to back up, that they should let me know. Review their settings in a status report every month so they see what we're backing up and how that's working. And here's a key backups. Because it's a managed service from me, if your backup isn't working, right, or there's a problem with it, whatnot, I will see that. I will call you. We'll set up an appointment and we'll get that fixed. Okay. There's a couple of backup stories, and I'll share with you. Right. One was a business. Actually, they're both business stories. So in one case, okay, there was no disaster that happened, but it was a sports team, a prominent sports team, and they had somebody in long ago that set up a server for them, right? And all their information was on this server. And they set up a tape backup system on the server. And every night, the receptionist would take the tape and put a new tape in, take a tape home, do all that stuff, right? They had some problems, so they called us and ended up being there to look at their server and fix. And through not just fixing the problem, but making sure there was no other problems, I checked on their backup, and I discovered that whoever had done the work before did all that, but never scheduled backup jobs. So in essence, what was happening was that the customer was taking home blank tapes every day, right? Nothing was ever being backed up. Now, they had a failure, right? It cost them big time. And I don't even know how much it was them, but it would have been disastrous, right? In another example, further back in time, right? Now, in this case, it was a disaster. The receptionist was backing up their account files every day, you know, as she was told to do, and all that. But and they had a failure, drive crash, the missing information. So that's why we were there. We were in there, and so we say, oh, well, it's good job backups, and we start to look at restoring them, and we look at their backup, what they're backing stuff up on, and every day, the receptionist was backing up shortcuts to the files, not actually files themselves. And so she was believing that she was doing the right thing, and you know, she probably, you know, but the files were not being backed up, and so I can't recall in that situation what occurred. But imagine if you're running a business and you lose all your digital records for your accounting, right? What does that mean to you, right? I know for me that would be disastrous, right? No, and that's I use QuickBooks Online for that very reason, right? I don't even have to worry about backing up in that scenario, right? Because that's in QuickBooks job. So that's, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I've been rambling on for about 30 minutes, and I hope to next Saturday maybe see a bit of a bigger audience. And you know, I want this to be very, very friendly and engaging, and you know, no question is a dumb one, right? You know, I never apologize to my mechanic. You should never apologize to your tech, right? Because, you know, that's why we're here, right? And that's why you have mechanics service your car, right? And I think in today's day and age, the computer also needs a tech. And the smart people have that relation and deal with things when they're small, and not wait for the impending disaster, because little problems will always translate into much bigger, more painful problems if unaddressed. Okay, it's the big message. All right, so happy technology out there, right? Enjoy and be safe on the net. All right, we'll talk to you next Saturday.